Hello, thank you for taking time out of your day to watch one of my videos. In the last couple of my videos, I was talking about starting a new web series. Well, here it is. It is some history on the Pecos Valley. Today we're going to begin with early history of the Pecos Valley, starting with Native American settlers from around 10,000 years ago. Scientists discovered evidence of possible settlers ranging from the Sandia Man to the Clovis Man to the Folsom Man, again around 10,000 years ago. At some point in the 1900s, over 150 mounds covering stone houses were discovered in the Rio Bonito Valley near Lincoln. Irrigation ditches were found about 20 miles to the north of present day Roswell. Early Spanish settlers came roughly in the 1830s, 1840s to this part of New Mexico. The pioneers came from the Manzano Mountains, they started a small village or outpost about 20 miles to the southwest of Roswell. They had named this outpost San Jose, but because of trade route freight wagons running from Missouri and other parts of the eastern part of the United States at the time, they renamed this town La Plaza de Missouri, or Missouri Plaza. A lot of agriculture came from this town, including cattle, sheep, and various different crops, such as cotton and, a lot of cotton and corn. One town that was formed just to the north of Roswell on the Brando River was actually named Brando, but a band of outlaws actually raided that town and made away with anything worth of value in that village. So people ended up abandoning that town. So to start out, that this town started was around the area of El Toro Bravo or the courthouse, and it started as a town called the Rio Hondo. Now, this town was named Rio Hondo due to the river that runs through this town, the Hondo River. And later in the 1870s, another town just to the southeast was made. Now, the differences between the two towns was El Rio Hondo was actually catered more towards like the Anglo-Saxon races or white race, and this new town was catered more towards the Mexicans. Now, this new town was had a lot of inhabitants from the state of Chihuahua in Mexico. So the inhabitants decided to name this town Little Chihuahua, or as we now know it as Chihuahuita. Chihuahuita was actually put here before Roswell became a true settlement, so meaning that Chihuahuita was here before Roswell. Upon finding this town, a lot of cattle herders made their way towards this town. Some cattle herders have big names such as Charles Goodnight, Oliver Loving, Robert A. Casey, and the well-known Jonas Chisholm. I will be getting more to them here in just a minute. First, let me start by saying about getting this valley launched. There were many setbacks to the Rio Hondo Valley, such as Native American Indians coming and raiding a lot of the outposts and villages and ranches. The Mescalero Apache natives would raid ranches such as the Robert A. Casey Ranch, who arrived in this valley with 1,800 head of cattle in 1866. Natives attacked his ranch at one point and made away with all but 300 head of cattle. Soldiers from the Mexican army tried to chase them down and were able to recover most of the cattle, but many were lost. Jonas Chisholm had settled in what is now south of present day Roswell, which is out by the dairies, in between Roswell and Dexter. That is where he first settled down his ranch, and now there's a little community there called Chisholm. At one point, some natives actually attacked his ranch and made off with 500 head of cattle, so he moved to what is now presently known as East Grand Plains. At that time was called South Spring River. After the natives had attacked many of the houses here in Roswell, the people would just abandon a lot of their town. Other turmoils for settlers included a devastating grasshopper outbreak in 1876. They devoured gardens, grains, crops, and even gnawed on the bark of fence posts, believe it or not. The next year, there was an epidemic of smallpox across the valley. We had crude vaccinations back then, but they were not very effective towards the smallpox, so the mortality rate was very high, actually as high as 50% in some parts of the community. In the 1880s, a range war broke out between the sheep herders and the cattle ranchers. Sheep herders would actually poison the water of cattle ranchers in hopes of the cattle actually dying off and the ranchers being forced to move and abandon their ranches. The sheep herders would actually take over the ranches and take over the land. Early migrants here to this part of the valley actually found it hard to get here because of the rough terrain and mountains and hills on all sides. Their three best ways were from the north, coming out of Las Vegas and Fort Sumner, out of the west, going through Lincoln and Fort Stanton. Now, Fort Stanton is where the Twin River or Seven Rivers are. That is where the Fort Stanton used to be located at. Now I'm not too sure. I will get back to you on that in the next video, hopefully. From the south was another way into the Pecos Valley through a town called Eddy, which we now know as Carlsbad. And that was the only way to get through to this valley. And that is all I have for today. Hopefully the next episode I'll be giving you some stats on Roswell, such as population, the size of Roswell, some notable people. So stay tuned for my next video. And thank you again for taking time out of your day to watch. And have a wonderful day.